Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to another one-on-one episode of We Need to Talk. I, of course, am Malynda, and today I'm joined by my wonderful husband, John Volk.
You called me wonderful.
You are wonderful most of the time.
You're recording this. I'm going to listen to this over and over again.
and remind me that I said this.
Yeah.
Well, you're no stranger to being on the podcast, but I wanted to do a special one-on-one episode with you because we've been home together for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Raising a child.
Who's 6 months old.
Who is 6 months old. That's how we've been keeping track of the pandemic, is by her age. But obviously there's so much going on in the world. But one of the things that I really want to talk about, and I know people are probably interested in our plans as we're raising her, is how we plan to raise a biracial child during this kind of civil unrest that's happening right now. It feels like history is repeating itself, and I know, we've had conversations with my parents, specifically my dad, who's, feels like he's reliving the past again. But I want to just talk with you a little bit about raising Sienna, and because I don't think racism is something that's going to be gone, at least in our lifetime. But I'm hoping that...
Yeah, there's no way.
There's no way. But I'm hoping that maybe by the time Sienna's our age, we'll start to see it kind of dissipate a little bit. But for you, like, you grew up in Kansas. Like, what was, like, the racial climate there like?
I mean, it's predominantly white. That being said, there was a sizable minority population. It's just different cultures.
Right.
It's that don't really intermix quite so much, or if they do, it's split along socioeconomic scales, right? So like the white folks who might couple up with people of color, you could probably tell you like where they worked or what side of town they lived on, right? Which is how you would probably, I mean, if you were reading like To Kill a Mockingbird, like those, like it's the same. It's kind of like from days of yore that there would be versus living in a New York or in LA where there are people of multiple races that just look blended, that walk among everyone else, and you don't quite, no one really, people care far less out here.
Right.
So in that sense, it's you just don't, aside from what you consume from media to pick up different cultures.
Yeah.
Through
It's the
rap
personal work
music
that
or
you
something,
do.
right?
Yeah.
Or through television. That's about it, right? So like that is pretty instructive. We one of my sisters was picking out books to send to Sienna, and she realized she was at the Barnes and Noble in Kansas, and she's like, I can't find a children's book, that has a black girl or like any kid of color. They look the same, and she had a little bit of, wait a second, like I didn't really notice this until now. Like this is someone who's lived decades, and that's just a testament to you don't encounter it until it affects you.
Yeah. So I'm curious, do you think that because I mean, you lived in Kansas and then you went to Texas and then you moved to LA. So, and you've traveled obviously as well, but do you think that your view of like what racial tensions are happening in this country would be completely different and skewed if you had stayed in Kansas?
Yeah, I mean, it would have to. I don't. It's difficult for me to say, what to give a take on a path not traveled.
Right.
It honestly, it depends on who, like anything, like who do you interact with and where do you get your news,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This is a really unique climate. I don't know of anything that it's akin to other than the civil rights movement in the 60s, and I obviously wasn't around for that, but it's a flashpoint. So I don't know how someone can not be aware of it. That being said, is that affecting the sleep of people in the Midwest if you don't interact with them? No. We had riots here. We have protests here. You could hear helicopters depending on where you live. for those, even if again, if I I was gonna say if I were white, but like if I was if I just
If you were a
lived by
different kind of white
myself,
person.
yes, very pure. No, if I lived by myself, or I just had my spouse was also white, and we lived in LA, like would it still affect? It would probably affect me more, but
Probably.
not to this extent, right?
For sure. Absolutely. So, like, when we're sitting down and talking about how to approach certain things with Sienna, like, what has been at the forefront of your mind with how to address these type of situations with her? Because I do think my approach will definitely be a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
just because of my own life experiences and the people that I've surrounded myself with, and just being involved in activism and the conversations that I have. But for you, as someone who is a white male who clearly is at the top of like the privilege pyramid, I guess we could say, how would you present these situations to her and explain to her, like if she were older,
Yeah.
how would you present this to her? Because it's a hard conversation to have with kids so that they understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think the kids. The short answer is I don't know.
Yeah, how can
I
you,
don't
right?
know
Yeah.
how to, and I don't know what her mindset's going to be. I don't know any of that
Yeah,
stuff. I
yeah.
think where I come out, like where's the through line, or what's my main theme
Mm-hmm.
for this stuff? I more than anything, I think it's to know your rights
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and to know who to call.
Right.
I don't know. Again, that's in your back pocket. That's a must-have. That's a get out of jail. I don't mean like literal jail, but like
Right.
I mean to really, I don't know. It's gonna have to be a lifeline in
Yeah.
a sense. And to truthfully, I feel like unfortunately she's going to be, they're going to judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Regardless of what she ends up looking like, she's
Mm-hmm.
going to have some melanin, right?
Yeah,
So like
yeah,
we already see it. But the how she can counteract that or really set the tone, there are things that she's going to be able to do, and I don't know if other folks who are people of color are going to know, they have that same kind of mindset.
Right, right.
That being said, a lot of these situations that are in the news that are terrible, and that's why they're in the news, are made off split-second decisions. So knowing how to present yourself and everything, that doesn't guarantee
Anything.
full safety.
Sadly.
Yeah.
And I think just going back to, like I said, with upbringing, probably people in Kansas don't realize how big of a factor that plays into the lives of Black Americans. That you have to really have kind of like a checklist of how to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. They just I mean, I can't speak for Kansas. I don't know.
For sure.
I just know that
But I just think
it's
by way of it
difficult
being
for
the Midwest, like
yeah, or it's just difficult to put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
That just comes from a different makeup of you. I'd never, because again, a lot of times you grow up and you get by and you know what to do, and it's like, well, this is what I would do, and this has worked for me, and it works for everyone that I know. So
Yeah.
like, why would it be any different?
Right.
The only way it wouldn't work is if you're lazy or if
Right.
you're just dumb or something.
Right,
Like in
right.
that sense, it's unimaginative, and it's you thread the line, you thread the needle of being unempathetic or something, right?
But I guess that's what's so frustrating to me is that when you get into those types of conversations and they're so quick to say like, oh, well, this worked for me, why wouldn't it work for you? You're completely discrediting somebody else's experience. Like if I'm telling you that this is what happened to me and I know why do you get to say that it's not true?
Yeah, I don't know. That's just, it's something that,
Because that's what's happening. That's what we're seeing for the people that, for example, don't even believe in the Black Lives Matters. Like everything's equal. Like Black lives, all lives matter. Like they're no more important than any other life. But it's like no, Black people around the country are telling you this is how I'm still being treated. This is how cops view me. This is what's happening. And it's like we're not saying this. I say this all the time. We're not saying it to hear ourselves talk.
I think,
You know?
I remember I was reading some like a collection of interviews by Kurt Vonnegut, the author of Slaughterhouse-Five, among other works, and he had this idea. It was interesting to pick this up. I don't know when he gave the interview, probably in the 70s or 80s or something, where he was saying that the just disconnect of humans for other humans, right? Like to not being able to step into their shoes. And the idea he had was to, why don't we just implement a national pen pal program where just based on last names or just something, right, just sheer randomness, you are paired with 5 other people who you will not know throughout the United States. You might have someone from Nome, Alaska, and also from Shreveport, and then New York, and you just throughout your lives be paired and check in with these people, because I don't. It goes back to my sister's experience in Barnes and Noble. There's no reason for her to have noticed that, right? And not that she wasn't looking for it. It's just like it hadn't hit her. Like
Right.
you don't know what you're looking for
Right.
until you have to look for it.
Yeah.
In that sense, I don't know what it is that will get people to, again, like, no, this is how I am typically treated. Unless you're friends with someone, like you're gonna take their word for it because they're your friend, right?
Right.
Your best friend from high school, if they happen to be, Muslim, like you're going to understand their approach to things.
Right. So if you're not exposed to those people, of
Yeah,
course.
but then when you
Yeah.
run into someone in the line at the DMV and they're Muslim and you haven't encountered someone and they say like, oh, this always happens to me. Well, it's like, well, I don't really know you.
Right.
You could be, or
Dramatic.
you could just be. Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, I like how you approach things. I know you're going to play this back too, because sometimes I get so
I'm
annoyed.
wonderful and I approach things nicely.
No, but it is a valid point that you're making.
I guess a question I have is,
Yeah.
when you said my approach is going to be different.
Yeah.
What is your
What is my approach?
Yeah.
In
If you can
regards to
hit on
what's-
some themes on like what to instill into Sienna.
See, okay, yeah, it is a little bit different because, but I'm torn because I do want to instill in her to be proud of the black side of her, but not in a way that's discrediting obviously the white side of her, because obviously she should be proud to be your daughter. But I think because you're in a society that black women are kind of at the bottom of the totem pole naturally, that I want to make sure that she doesn't have that view as well. But then I'm feeling like I don't think by the time, of course, I do think racism is still going to be around, but I don't think that by the time she's our age or even like in high school and college, that biracial children or just people of color are going to be, I think they're going to be the majority. So I don't know how much of an issue it actually is going to be. Then if we could just teach her, just love yourself in general rather than rather than focusing so much on like, hey, this black side of you is very, very important, because the white side, everybody already knows is, because that's how society paints it.
Yeah, I get that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. When you were talking, and sorry, I'm not like directly responding to that,
fine,
but like
yeah.
when you're talking, I was thinking like, someone can spot me across the block, be like, that's just a white guy who looks kind of awkward. But like you, also like, hey, that's a black woman.
Mm-hmm.
With her, it's and you probably heard this from folks who are biracial. It's like, I'm gonna be keen on being receptive to her thoughts on, I don't know if I fit in either camp.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like, again, I can tap into my white side or I can tap in my black side. Like, maybe she doesn't feel like she can tap into either.
And I think from a lot of biracial friends that I have, that is the number one feeling that they have. They don't know where they fit in.
Yeah. But that's interesting. It's like, but why do you, you obviously, when she takes standardized tests, you're going to have to tick boxes, like what am I going to be? It's like, why do you feel the need to fit in? Why does someone have to fit in,
Yeah,
into,
why can't they be
I'm either
both?
white or black or not.
And that's what I'm saying. I want her to be, I just want her to be proud of who she is.
Yeah.
No matter what. And I don't think it'll be as difficult for her to just be proud of who she is as it might have been for people that are our age when they're growing up, because biracial kids wasn't like as common. I think biracial children are becoming more the norm now.
Oh yeah, it depends where you're. If you go to like Brazil, everyone kind of it's an interesting mix of over the generations, people have mixed much more so than we have here, but also because of this country's history, it's we don't need to go into that,
Right.
but that's a very much more recent thing, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, if white people are no longer the majority, and I mean, statistically, they won't be,
They won't
right?
be, yeah.
In how, in honestly, not that long term, right?
Right.
You're gonna have Hispanics, right,
Mm-hmm.
and then mixed folks, but that being said, by the time we're dead, I think we'll probably, assuming the government continue as a going concern and everything, um, the punching above their representative class of white people that's going to be something that's going to they're not going to give up on that easily.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see, I mean, if you look at the breakdown of senators, right, they're mostly white men, right?
Right.
In ways that are not representative of their overall population.
Right.
Um,
Which is why it's so interesting. You could get into politics, but
Yeah.
I just want to say this. It is very interesting that you say they aren't representative of like their constituents, but they vote for them. It's like, why do you think that person represents you?
That's what I'm saying, like, or I'm trying to get at, in the sense of, like, even if Sienna doesn't have, 'cause things will change, but I'm saying, like, how much of that is still going to be around? Where it's like, even though, like, hey, I'm the majority of this stuff, but if a white person is still regarded as like
A white male, yeah.
right, the standard bearer, then, like, how much of those problems are still entrenched? You just have I guess you have a broader base of folks who feel the same way.
Well, it's the mentality. It's that mentality that's just kind of ingrained into the system as a whole. So it will take time
Yeah.
to kind of to dismantle it and to break it down and change, because otherwise, I do think that is something that's going to take much longer.
It's
to
crazy though, like,
break up.
Just the timeline that we're talking about, because when was Loving?
1957.
57, and who's Ruby Bridges? Is that her name?
Ruby Bridges. She just turned 67 this year, and she was 5 years old when she was walked to school.
Yeah, for
integrating. Yeah,
school. Yeah, that's crazy to me. That's absolutely crazy to me. We're talking about a huge amount of progress, but I get it. It's like, this stuff is just rooted.
It's quote unquote progress. I mean, yes, look, we can get into arguments, not us, but like in general, like, obviously we're not segregated anymore. Obviously black people are not sitting in the back of the bus anymore. We can drink from whatever freaking water fountain we want. But people don't realize, and a lot of people that argue with me on social media say, like, well, name one law that is racist against black people today. And it's like, there isn't one. I'm not going to try and tell you that there's one law that says black people cannot do this, that's written that way. But that's not, that just because it doesn't say it doesn't mean that it's not inherently
they're not going to
racist.
say it's right. You have laws that are written that disparately impact in a negative way.
Exactly, and
people
that's what
of
they're
color.
not, that's what people don't get.
And that's what you're battling for those
Right.
people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I feel bad for Sienna.
Why do you feel bad for her?
Well, because she's gonna she's gonna inherit the same arguments, from the same people, right?
Yeah.
So it depends on how deeply she wants to get involved in this stuff, right?
It's trickled down. I mean, that's why we haven't really moved forward in that sense, is because you have the people that were born in the 1930s that passed it down to their kids born in the 60s, that passed it down to their kids born in the 90s, and they're going to pass it down to their kids, and then that mindset just continues. It's like a family tree.
It is, but no, it is. And the other thing, you have that's strictly within families, right?
Yeah.
But, like, most people interact with people around them, so they could get it from their families, but also their phones, and so, like, that's social media, and it's also the comfort food of cable news.
Yeah.
Who just that's what they want to keep you on that channel, right? So they're gonna make you feel certain ways, and they're gonna tell you what you want to hear. Unfortunately.
And that goes for either side.
Oh yeah. This is, again, the pen pal program.
Yes.
Like,
which would be, I think that's such a cool idea.
It's great. I don't know how you would implement it. It's like, it's also difficult to run people down to, like, hey, how do you do? But, like, maybe in the age of FaceTime.
In elementary school in
Who
Mexico.
Was it? In Mexico?
Her name was Martha Zapita.
Zapata?
Zapita.
Zapita?
Zapita?
It's gotta be Zapata. Wait, how do you spell it?
Zepeda. I'm almost
Oh,
positive.
yeah, it's probably Zepeda.
What?
What?
Why are you trying to
White
tell me?
people
Yeah.
can.
White's plating be my own pen pal. No, but I think, I think she was from Mexico. I don't remember what class we did it in, but then I remember she sent me a picture of her.
Yeah.
We did it, and it was really cool.
Isn't that cool?
It was really awesome.
Right.
But I mean, it starts with kids anyway. It
What
starts
does?
like real meeting other people of different cultures,
Yes.
and like racism is not taught; it's learned. Like it all starts with kids. So I think for Sienna and anybody listening now, if you have kids, you just have to expose them to people of different cultures and different races at a very early age. But not, I wouldn't even say make a big deal about it.
No, there's not. Absolutely
Like
not.
we have these
You don't need
books
to.
that a wonderful friend and fan sent that is all like kids
they're
throughout
great.
the globe, and it's just cool. It's like, oh yeah, kids are from different areas, and it should just be that simple, But when you make a big deal about it, then it becomes a big deal.
Yeah, it's difficult because again, like when I'm saying like know your rights, like there's a switch between realizing that everyone is, has their own unique story and their own unique background, but then I need to arm you to face the world, right? And
Right.
that's the uncomfortable chasm.
Well, what would you want to arm her with? Not physically. I'm not pro gun, even though this pandemic.
Right.
But what would you want to arm her with? I mean, for me, faith. That is a huge thing. I want to arm her with.
Yeah, that's worked for you.
It has worked for me.
Yeah.
It's not worked for you, just not as much as it's worked for me.
I like reason. Yeah.
You are very much a logic and reason person.
Yeah. Oh, that's like a yin and yang thing.
It is. Oh, look at us, perfect match.
Look at that.
Yeah. So faith for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that honestly, the fact, even though I don't like practice criminal law, knowing someone who is an attorney, I think is just great.
You're like, meet an attorney. Aren't you an attorney, Dad? Not me.
But I know where to go. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, yeah, entertainment and criminal are two very separate practices.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get pulled over or you're at a house party and the cops show up, like, what should you do? What can you do? Right? It's that stuff because you don't want to. If the spotlight is going to shine on you in an unfortunate way, you don't want to do things the wrong way. You know, like if someone says to like, hand over something, but you shouldn't, like, call me, that type of thing.
Yeah. We're so funny. We're so different. Like, what are you arming her with? Know your rights. I'm like, faith. Believe in God.
Right. Well, then you can do that when you get home.
Thank him for getting you, for knowing your rights and remembering them.
Yeah.
I mean, but like for me, like even dealing with people, and I say faith, but I also just say like I'm a huge person and what is the word I'm looking for? Proponent for?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to edit this. I'm a huge proponent for having grace for people.
Yeah.
And that comes from my faith. And so for me, if I'm dealing with somebody that is ignorant or doesn't know, hasn't been exposed to people like me or really has that one black friend in their life, like I do approach things with grace. Like, you know what, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and just try to have a conversation and see where they're at. Now, I do have boundaries and I do have limits, and people have definitely run out of grace, but that's something I do want to arm her with, because I do think obviously having knowledge and knowing your rights is something that's valuable, but I think also the way you approach situations is also going to help her.
Yeah. No, that's huge. And it's interesting because, like, what we're saying on one hand, it's race. The other thing is there's a class component where knowing how to speak to others and knowing how to speak to, I don't want to say authority, but like, having a facility with dealing with others is huge.
Yeah, just knowing how to talk to people. It's all the difference in the world. I completely agree.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you give me attitude, I'm going to give you attitude right back.
Yeah, but you also know when to you can feel out situations in a way.
That's true.
I'm just have a bitch face
You kind of do.
at all times.
But I fell in love with that bitch face. You were a little when we met, but we don't need to go
It
into that.
worked.
We're talking about it did. 10
I'm
years
wonderful.
later, I'm here. You see, I give you one compliment, and now you're just running with it. Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah, I don't want to say that though. That's a Shark Tank guy.
He's not wonderful.
Well, that's the whole thing.
I know.
It's gross.
Okay, so she's 6 months old.
Yeah. So we'll start tomorrow.
We'll start off with these life lessons. But like, it's going by so fast.
I know.
You know? 6 more months is going to be a year. I can't even believe
I think she's awesome.
She's incredible. She's actually really awesome. I need her to stop looking like you, though, because I'm getting a little jealous.
I don't mind it.
I know you don't, because you were complaining the whole time she was in the womb because her profile looked like me.
But if she has my bitch face, people will leave her alone.
But if she
we won't have to talk about any of this stuff because no one's going to ever bother her.
Oh my gosh. I'm just interested to see how she decides to navigate her place in the world.
Well, honestly,
and I think that's such a cool thing to be able to watch, like, literally a human evolve.
It's interesting because on one hand, your capacity for grace, faith has helped guide that for you. If you didn't have religion or faith, I think that's who you are as a person. It's a personality trait. It's like on one hand you said because it's like a compliment, but the other thing is I think it's just like hardwired into you. I don't know for whatever reason you have that in there. Yeah. Where I not to say that I'm not, but
you're
it's
not.
It's just different.
It is.
You know what I mean? Like
it's very different.
Treat you as fully, unless you give me a reason not to, and it's like, oh, that just changes things, right?
I think.
But I'm saying, like, with her, she could very well inherit what you have, which you could have gotten from your mother, or you could have it's a straight up personality thing, or she may, not that I don't want to paint her as like being mean or something, but like she could be equally as effective, but in a different way.
I think with you, I want to say this in the nicest way possible, because it's not an insult, but it's just a fact. I think that you have that up until a certain point. It's almost like there's like this barometer, and you're like, I'm only going to go to this mark, and once you get me to that mark, I'm just done.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know go that way, exactly I will where go your cutoff is, and you won't go past it.
Yeah, that's fair.
It is.
Yeah, there we go. But you know what? It's a good thing to have certainty. Yeah. You know where I'm not going to be elastic. It's just like, nope, you pass. I'm done.
You know who you are.
I could see like your face thinking of other things to say, and you're like,
I'm just.
I'll leave it here.
I love it. What is, before we wrap up, because this was actually fun to talk to you. I'm glad that we did this. And if it sounds a little echoey, it's because we're in our living room.
I'm glad I was at home when you know.
We've been home together for the last 6 months. Not 10 years, 6 months. We haven't even been home together for 10 years. When did I move in? When did we even move in together?
You had a home inside my heart.
Oh my God. Okay. So okay, for you it's rights, for me it's faith and grace. What is one thing that we should collectively instill in her?
I mean, everything else. But it's not even like great. I'm just saying I like in general, like I'm not against teaching her faith. It's just like, well, your mom is going to be better suited for that. Right. So all of these things are teamwork things. For sure. I honestly, the one thing that just, it springs to mind is the importance of close relationships. She'll obviously get that from us, but like in general, like it's a huge thing because you are, have your tribe. Right? Have your village, But I want to vet everyone in her village. Every single person. Yeah. Like full application. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we have a really, really close-knit village and of people that cannot wait to meet her. I mean, I keep saying this, but her first birthday is going to be a block party because we have so many people that love her. But I want
I do want her to have those close knit relationships. I mean, obviously, I have my best friend that I've been best friends with for I don't even know how long now. It's
Must be nice.
25 years almost. You know, it is nice. Carla's amazing.
One of these days, I'll have a Carla.
You do. His name's Sean. I'm going to tell him to listen to this and be like, what? But, I have Carla, I have Nimona, I have Drexel. We have this whole, like little village of people, of aunts and uncles. And I want her to have that. So I think that I'm totally with you on that. I think just value your relationships with people, but also know when they need to not be in your village. That's also a very important lesson. Yeah. Not everybody has to, you don't need to give everybody access to you. And I think I learned that lesson too late. So I'm definitely going to teach her that early on. See, that's the thing.
That's something for, again, you are better suited to tell that story. Because, like, I don't, when I hit that barometer, whatever you're talking about, like, I'm done. That's not an issue with me. But, like, if anything, maybe I cut it off too soon. But, like, it's in general.
Because you saw where it was going. I had faith that it was going to change, and I was giving that person grace.
Yeah. So again, we'll see if that's a challenge for you, right? I think it's probably an ongoing challenge because you have a big heart.
Yeah.
It's not quite a challenge for, and I don't know. It could be a challenge for her or not. We'll just cross that bridge.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I guess we should go do dishes or something.
And by that, you
and
mean
by we, I mean you.
I
don't do dishes, y'all. I'm just going to be honest. It's not
I like dishes.
I know. Well,
it's like a mindfulness thing.
I know. You like have your AirPods on and like you're either watching a game or you're FaceTiming.
I'm naked.
He's not. And all you listening, get the picture out of your head. Even though it's a pretty picture.
Oh my gosh.
All right, well, you guys, thanks so much for listening. And I will talk to you again next week.
Love you.
Bye.